somebody that, has chronic low back pain or something like that, or, shoulder pain or whatever it is, and they still have their limb, but they're noticing this sort of chronic pain. And let's say it's associated, at some level, it's associated with a lack of proper movement in that joint. They can actually, on top of moving themselves, and there are some people that are in so much pain that it just hurts for them to move. Mm-hmm. So they can start with a visualization practice.
That's exactly right. Yeah. We have apps on smartphones now that can be used where you're just looking at somebody else's limb. For somebody who's in too much pain and they can't do it at all themselves, they can just look at an app and still stimulate the mechanoreception in their own brain. Absolutely amazing. You can do the mirror therapy where, say, you have pain that's really bad on one side, but you can still move the other side. So there's lots of options. And that's what I really wanted to do with the Pain Fix protocol, is give people options. So no matter where they are on that spectrum, they can start somewhere, start making some progress, and then build upon that.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So we know movement is really key, but some people don't know how to move their joints in the proper way. So how do you guys start to address that?
So there's over 70 instructional videos included in the Pain Fix protocol, and we guide people, and there's regressions and progressions so that you can start somebody very easily with, say one of the easiest ways to get somebody who has difficulty moving to move is to remove the load. So get them in a non-weight bearing position, allow them to achieve some success there, and then gradually increase the load as time goes on. Again, no different than what we were talking about earlier with a resistance training model.
Right. Yeah. So you're starting to take gravity out of it. I know, like when people are recovering from, let's say, rotator cuff surgery, one of the things they'll do is kind of put their hand on the wall. Yeah. Like the wall is taking some of their weight off of it.
That's right.
And then they're just kind of like gradually like moving their arm on the wall.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
To again, take it out of gravity, right, and kind of help support it.
Yeah. Yeah. Or say with a whiplash patient who, the muscles and the ligaments have been damaged, I'll start reintroducing motion into the neck when they're lying on their back and they don't have to use their muscles because the table can be fully supporting them. And we can teach those joints, hey, it's safe to move from this position. Basically, you're just trying to teach that person that, hey, this is safe. You're not going to hurt yourself. No need to fire off all that neural architecture and reinforce that pain pathway. We can start creating a new pathway that doesn't have an association with pain with it. So essentially I always think of it like there's a state park by our house, and every once in a while they will close a walking trail for reforestation. They don't want anybody walking on it so that it can go back to its natural state. That's essentially what we want to do with the pain pathways in the body. And the more you can teach that person how to move and not fire off those pain pathways, the more you can allow those bushes and branches to grow over that old pathway, and you can create a new pathway that's pain-free. And that's neuroplasticity used for the benefit of that person's quality of life and enjoyment.
Yeah, that's so good to know, because a lot of people, I think, were intimidated when you said, okay, if we could just go back to walking 5 to 9 miles a day, right, we get rid of a lot of these problems. And you're right in theory about that. But again, so many people are starting in a place where, even the idea of walking to their mailbox is extremely painful. So there is a place to start for each of these individuals.
Well, I love how you said that. And really the 5 to 9 miles, it's an ideal. It's like running an ultra marathon or an Ironman race. Yeah. Like nobody starts out in life in a point where they're ready to do those kinds of things. It's a long-term goal, and you take a step towards it. There's this amazing principle that came out of feudal Japan. It's called Kaizen. Americans are obsessed with the end result. I think it's wired into our DNA. So they hear 5 to 9 miles and they're like, oh, I got to do it today. I'm going to gut it out. And I love that about our country. And it's also, it takes a toll on us because we don't understand the process that goes into it so much, Yeah. And so, Warren Buffett didn't start out where he's ended up. It was a process of many years of consistently Absolutely. Working at this thing and learning about it and getting better at it. And so this topic, the idea came out of feudal Japan. It's called Kaizen. And what it means is constant and never ending improvement. So no matter where you are, you're always striving to get better. There is no finish line, essentially. So even the 5 to 9 miles is not a finish line. If, like you said, the person has difficulty going to the mailbox, that's where you start.
Yeah.
Except with a pain patient, you don't even go to the mailbox because you don't want to push them all the way to their limit. I want them to go halfway to their mailbox, come back to the house, still feel good, pat themselves on the back for a great job, and then try it again tomorrow. Again, good. Halfway, build up that confidence, be able to perform it without any pain or discomfort, and then slowly build themselves up over time.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. Now let's take somebody that, can go out and walk a mile or so. Let's talk about prevention, right? Like, what are some of the best movements that people can be doing on a regular basis?
Yeah. So, well, you mentioned one of them already that you're doing as we speak here, which is working at a standing desk, sitting less. I'm working at a kneeling chair, which has
one of those actually, right? I have one right there.
Yeah. So it's really good for maintaining neutral head position and spinal curves. So those are easy things that can be coupled into what you're doing already. Like, we're having a conversation and both of us are doing those things right now. It's not taking any additional time. So that's what I like to do. Now, earlier we were talking about what the heavy hitters in chronic pain are. Yeah. And so when we talk about preventative strategies, what we want to do is, again, go back to those heavy hitters. So when we're talking about driving proprioception, driving mechanoreception, we want to understand that the biggest drivers of that, joint motion, yes, but specifically spinal motion. So the spine has more proprioceptors because it's the foundation for the rest of our body. And because it's an extremely complicated network of joints that have to be stable and mobile at the same time. It doesn't get enough credit for the amazing job that it does. But the higher we go in the spine, the more of those mechanoreceptors we stimulate. So my favorite way to stimulate mechanoreception is with a very simple neck mobility exercise. Not a stretch. It's a mobility exercise because movement drives the signals that we're after. So I just have people sit up or stand up really tall. Imagine a dot on the tip of the chin and another on the top of the collarbone. And then you're going to slowly try and connect those dots. So you'll remember from biomechanics class in school, the alignment of the facet joints in the cervical spine. They're angled like this. And so when they rotate, they laterally flex over each other to the same side. So when most people turn their necks, they keep their chin up. And what that does is it actually creates some jamming and stress on the joint capsule in those facet joints. And the little facet joints, for the listeners that aren't aware, are the joints that actually guide motion in the spine. It's not the disc that everybody talks about. It's the little joints on the back. And so by going in line with that, you're doing two things. Number one, you're getting a more complete range of motion. More range of motion directly translates to more proprioception, right? If we have no motion on one end of the spectrum, we're at 0. And if we have complete range of motion on the other end, we're at, or I guess if you wanted to go far enough, you would go to hypermobility and instability, where you're getting way too much and now you're dangerous on the other end. The body has this funny way of operating where, we like to be in the middle. We call it homeostasis. You go too high, you got a fever. You go too low, you got hypothermia. Either one of those extremes will kill you. So kind of the same with mobility. So we're aiming for normal mobility. In the case of cervical rotation, you're talking 85 to 90 degrees over each shoulder. So your nose should be directly in line with your shoulder when you finish this.